All right, good evening, everybody. My name is Todd Kobus, and I'm a city councilor here in Attleboro. Tonight, this is our 8th of these Attleboro area COVID-19 video conferences that we've been doing each Sunday at 7:30. This week, we're joined with Bill Rooney, the principal for Attleboro High School. I just got a message, Mayor Paul Heroux will be joining us momentarily. State Senator Paul Feeney is here, State Rep Jim Hawkins, Catherine Feerick, the Economic Development Director for Attleboro, may be joining us, and then we have Rachel Legend and Carrie Ballou from Fuller Hospital joining us, and Jay Delisio, a City Councilor here in Attleboro. We'll talk about the drive-through food drive that's scheduled for next weekend, and then Steve Withers will give us a Attleboro Public School update. So without further ado, Principal Rooney, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us. Oh, you're muted. Hold on 1 second.
Am I good?
You're good. Thanks.
Okay. It's a pleasure to be with you all tonight, and such an esteemed crew as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us. So, with the cancellation of school for the rest of the year, can you talk a little bit about the impact to Attleboro High School and to the students?
Yeah, I mean, Todd, unfortunately, there is no substitute for what our teachers deliver, inside those walls at the intersection of Blue Pride Way and Rathman Willard Drive. But, through the leadership of central office, we are working very hard to try to deliver as many of our curricular options remotely to try to help keep our students engaged and to try to prepare them as much as possible for whatever the next step is, whether it's next year as an underclassman or for our seniors for their next step beyond Attleboro High School.
Todd, you're muted, Todd.
Yeah, Steve, did you want to ask questions?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Todd. Hi, Principal Rooney. Thanks for joining us.
Chairman Withers, thank you.
So a lot of the questions that we get and see on social media, and I'm sure you get as a principal, are about kind of the spring activities, sports, proms, graduation. I know a lot of those, some of those items, decisions haven't been made, but if you could just kind of explain the process at where you're at and what's going to happen, or as far as if events are going to be canceled, and then what the process is as far as planning on things like graduation and whatnot.
Sure. Obviously our heart breaks for our seniors. They deserve better than this. As I've said before, a lot of people forget the fact that they also had a very tumultuous fall. The EEE restrictions that we had to abide by in Attleboro took away a lot of the things that they're accustomed to doing on Friday nights, whether it's, senior nights for some of their various sports activities, or the marching band and the football team, cheerleaders performing at Tozier Cassidy Field. So, the seniors got kind of a tough hand dealt to them at the start of the school year, and then to turn around in March and have so many of these things taken away from them. It's our priority to do what we can to try to provide some sort of memories for them. I think that nobody's going to be satisfied with what we come up with, because I personally won't be satisfied with it. I want to deliver exactly what we deliver year in and year out. But I think if on the tail end of this, if we can look back and say that we provided some memorable opportunities for our seniors, for our families, and for underclassmen, who might be recognized at Honor Society night or awards night, then I think that we can at least say that we've done the best we can based on the circumstances. The MIAA has officially canceled spring sports for this year, but our athletic director, Mark Hool, and I have been talking with our spring sports coaches, and we are looking at trying to put together some sort of a group senior night for those student athletes that were planning to be seniors, whether it be baseball, softball, the various other sports that would meet during the spring. Once we had permission, to be able to do so, we would go back into the building, maybe get out their uniforms, arrange for a time where those student athletes and their families could report to the school, observe appropriate social distancing, and possibly have, a photo opportunity or something like that to be able to preserve a memory. Very fortunate that, our partners at AACS are helping us with a virtual National Honor Society celebration that's going to be recorded this week, and it's going to be premiered on May 5th on all the different portals that AACS is affiliated with. We're going to do the same for awards night, which was originally scheduled for May 7th, and the also for scholarship night, which is originally scheduled for May 14th.
Great, thank you. And can you talk a little bit about credits for the high school, requirements for graduation, both for seniors and then for our underclassmen who are essentially missing a third of the year, and how is that going to work with getting credits and meeting requirements for graduation?
Well, again, what we're trying to offer remotely is no substitute for what we are doing on a consistent basis when we're at school. But, our teachers are working very diligently. Their department coordinators are helping them in terms of delivering the best instruction that they can remotely. And again, it's not perfect. I mean, we have over 150 teachers. And so, there's not always necessarily going to be consistency from one algebra class to the next algebra class, but it's our intention for everyone to be engaged enough in the work to be able to receive credit and move on. And whether that's our seniors who need those credits to be able to graduate, or whether it's underclassmen that need that number of credits to be promoted to the next grade. We are working with a few of our senior families right now this coming week, as a matter of fact, that we have some that are short of credits, and some of those students are working, and we certainly understand that, but we are making sure that they are engaged in the work. They do have to pass the work to be able to earn that diploma.
Great. Anything else, Principal Rooney, that you think should be relayed to the public, or you wanted to say? Or
well, I'm looking forward to speaking to your committee tomorrow night at the school committee meeting, and I'm just very grateful to the superintendent and his staff. They have provided outstanding leadership for us, and I'm very grateful to our families, especially the parents and guardians. So many of them are they're continuing their jobs from home, just like many of us are. And they're having to parent, and in some respects they are, serving the educational process as well. So I'm very grateful. Our school community has responded so wonderfully to this. And I'm just looking forward to better times ahead.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for joining us and all the work you're putting in.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
Thank you, Principal Rooney. And I know you have some other engagements, so feel free to jump off the call. And I just want to thank you.
Principal Rooney, I want to thank you also. That was a very useful presentation. A lot of people are listening right now. They'll appreciate that you took the time to come on the chat with us.
It's my pleasure. I mean, it's what we do. So thank you very much for having me.
And I would, it's not all doom and gloom. I think seniors and people kids in high school right now will remember this. This is certainly an unprecedented time. So there's opportunities for unique memories during this time as well. So
yeah,
thank you so much.
Yeah, Todd, I know that so many of you have tremendous reach through your social medias, through your social media accounts. We did start something right after Easter in the city that has gained a lot of momentum. And again, it's really just to be able to salute our seniors. We developed a poster in our graphic arts department. It's posted on our Attleboro High School Facebook page, and it's also posted on my Twitter account and the school's Instagram account. But much like the very popular Easter egg endeavor that was going on, A lot of folks have printed that flyer and are, putting it in a Ziploc bag or putting it in some sort of plastic laminate, and they're hanging it on their doors, their windows, their mailboxes. I've got one on the back window of my car. We just, again, trying to create memories for our seniors. And so any opportunity that the public has to help us with sharing that good news, we would appreciate it.
Say where that is again, where we can find it.
If you go to facebook.com/Attleboro High School, you can download it from there.
Outstanding. I will update. I'll hang one from my mailbox tomorrow. Thank you so much, Bill.
Thank you.
All right. See ya. Next up is Mayor Hero on. I saw a phone number joined. I wasn't sure if that was him. Paul? All right. Next up is Senator Feeney.
Hey Todd, how you doing?
Outstanding. Number 8.
Number 8. Man, oh man, who would have thought 2 months ago?
Seriously.
Oh my God. You look again, and I say it every week, and as Rep Hawkins, you're doing an incredible job, and the folks that we have on, including Principal Rooney.
Actually,
is the mayor on?
Yes, he is. Sorry.
Can you hear me okay? Yeah, hi.
Welcome. Sorry about that.
No problem. I'm just trying to get my system going. I don't know how to activate the video. I've done it before, but I'm just not able to do it.
Did we lose him?
There we go. All right. Start video. There we go. Okay, good.
Thank you so much for joining, Mayor Hero.
Yeah, no problem. Sorry about that. I've been on for a few minutes, but I was trying to figure out how to activate my video and audio. So anyway, how's everything going, folks, though?
Outstanding.
Good. So I'm guessing you probably want to chat about a couple of city-related issues. Is that right?
If you could just talk about sort of what's been going on in the city over the last couple of weeks and any specific items that, as it relates to COVID-19.
Okay, cool. I'll start with something that some of the other elected folks might be getting questions about, and that is the health department and the city's policy on requiring masks, both in public and in grocery stores or convenience stores. So the Attorney General gave us some guidance on this, and requiring masks in public is not something that we really have the authority to do. It's also, I've spoken with the police department and health office, and they don't want to do it. They say it's just unenforceable. There's 351 cities and towns in the state. Only about 8 of them are actually doing this, and the lawfulness of that is questionable. So the Attorney General basically said you can do an advisory, a recommendation, but it's not something you can actually, it's not something we can do. There's another point to the advisory the Attorney General gave, and that identified that we can do other things that are not expressly prohibited or stuff that is necessary for our community, but the masks in public is not one of them. A lot of people point to the Salem example. I think that was the first city in the state that did that, but again, the lawfulness of that is questionable, and the degree to which they can enforce it is also probably something the police chief doesn't want to deal with. But as far as enforcing like a what's it called, like a mask policy in Cumberland Farms or a Stop and Shop or something, I know Market Basket has an internal policy and they're doing it. Stop and Shop, I was at Stop and Shop in South Attleboro today. Every employee I saw was wearing one, and most of the patrons were wearing them as well. But that's something that the health department does have the authority to require if they wanted to. Now, the governor's office has basically said that they're, when working with the essential service providers, like a hardware store or a grocery store, try not to stress them out. Don't add extra burden to them. So try to convince them that it's in their interest to have an internal policy rather than coming down on them and saying you have to do this. And so I've spoken with Alan Perry, our health agent, and that's the approach that he wants to take, and I support that. He could go ahead and require it, but he feels like it would be better to work with them in a cooperative manner. And I certainly in favor of that as well. These are a couple of questions that I've gotten on a regular basis from people on my Facebook page and a couple emails about whether or not, why isn't the city done these things? And, there's good reason for that. And if people want more detail, I would just say call Alan Perry, the health agent, or if you wanted to talk about the enforceability of the mask policy in public, contact the police chief. Neither of them are in favor of either of those things. Any questions about those things? I can tell you a couple of city government-wide things we've done, like for city employees. Any questions about those, though, before I move on?
That all makes sense, but is the recommendation, I believe the recommendation from the state is to encourage everybody to wear masks. I understand it's not required. Is that the recommendation from you and for the city?
Yeah, it is. I mean, for city government employees, I mean, we talked about this a lot. I talked with the department heads. I talked with the health office, the personnel office, the city's labor attorney, and we were debating whether or not we're going to have a requirement to have city employees wear a mask. We kind of decided not to require it. I wanted to take the approach that leave it to the better judgment of people. I don't think we need to require it with city employees. If we supply the masks, they're going to do it on their own. So we didn't need to require it. If we had required it with water department or wastewater department, for example, OSHA would have had something to say about that, and we would have to offer a training if we were to require it. We just didn't think we needed to require it. So the department heads, the health office personnel, myself, we're all in agreement. Just have a general recommendation, strongly encourage city employees to wear masks, and we supplied those to city employees. As far as the general public, I've said it over and over again on my public Facebook page. It's strongly encouraged, practice social distancing, as we've heard a million times, keep your hands clean, wear a mask. I mean, it's to protect other people from the person who's wearing the mask. So that, again, is not something that it's consistent with the CDC guidelines. It's consistent with the CDC recommendation that we should do this to help decrease the amount of infection and spread of the virus.
Perfect. My other question was, what sort of near-term and long-term planning is underway at the city level? Are you doing anything to prepare for when things eventually open up? I know we can never know when that time is, and it'll be dependent on the state and all of that, but are there things being done now to sort of prepare for that, and if so, what are those things?
Well, yeah, the department heads at Park and Forestry and Recreation and DPW, those three different departments, they actually came to me and said, hey, we want to put our guys back to work, guys and girls back to work. We have work for them to do. We want to get ready for the summertime. If the parks are going to be open, we want that to be ready. We also just don't want them to fall into disrepair. So I implemented some recommendations with the health office, consistent with CDC guidelines and state DPH guidelines, and recommendations about, if people are going to be working indoors together, stay 6 feet apart, wear a mask, wash down your workstation before and after. If two people are going to be in a vehicle at the same time, they have to be wearing masks. If they if they're not wearing a mask, then it's okay to have one person in the vehicle. But wash down all of your equipment before and after you've used it. Don't take it for granted that the person before you or the vehicle before you was, the person used it before you was washed or cleaned down. So all of that, those are very common sense things about just basic hygiene, keeping the areas clean. So that was some of the things that we said about getting the departments back to work. But generally speaking, what we're going to do is we're going to follow the state's advice and the state's progress. And when we see something like the registry of motor vehicles open back up, when the governor makes an announcement for something like that to open up, that's when we will go ahead and open up our library and City Hall and the Council on Aging. So we're kind of following the state's lead on that, unless some compelling reason says that Attleboro is different from other, from the rest of the state, which is possible. Somebody might say that, and the case might be made for that, within the city government. But that's kind of where we're at right now, just following the state's lead. I thought it would be simple and consistent that way.
That makes perfect sense. What about sort of long-term planning? Is just following along with what the state's guidance is?
Yeah, well, in terms of long-term planning, it's going to be a phased-in approach where the federal government had issued their guidelines and states were encouraged to follow those guidelines, and the phased in 3 different phases. We will follow that as well, and the timing of that, I don't think anybody can predict. This is, Dr. Fauci said this is going to be, virus will be with us in September. I wouldn't be surprised if it's with us even longer. It's anybody's guess how long it's going to be with us. If 3 weeks or 5 weeks ago, everyone stayed home for 2 or 3 weeks, we would be done with this. But that's just not what's happened. I mean, people have continued to go out. We have essential services that people need, and so it is still with us. And the more people go out and interact, the longer it's going to stay with us. So as far as long-term prospects go, again, that we just don't know what's going to happen. I don't think anybody knows. Todd, you and I had, we talked through just a couple emails about the budget, and I'm in the process of doing that right now. And, it's just a couple of things that are actually beyond my control. Why we're waiting for the indirect cost analysis by a consultant to be done so I can submit the budget to the council. But we're just, there shouldn't be any layoffs. And I know that I think Jay is also on this, and you're on the budget committee, and Jay is on, so we really can't talk about the budget. But I think we're going to be okay though.
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining, Paul. Does anybody else have questions for Mayor Hurrell?
No.
All right. Thank you so much for joining. And do you have anything else to add before we move on?
I can't really think of anything. I mean, if anybody has any questions about anything we're doing at the city level, you can ask me, or even better, reach out directly to Alan Perry, the health agent. I haven't made a single decision by myself. Everything's been done in consultation with the health agent, Alan Perry, Jackie O'Brien, Dr. Quinn, our health officer. We're all on, the 4 of us are on the same page, and I've tried not to do anything that impacts the public per se, other than limiting, what my authority is just a city government. So, if anybody has any questions, you can always contact us and, send us emails. And, if I don't have the answer, you reach out to Alan Perry, who's very responsive.
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining, Paul.
All right, no problem. Talk to you guys.
Yeah. Next up, we have State Senator Paul Feeney. Paul, welcome again.
Thank you again, Todd. I was just, when I started before the mayor came on, I was kind of blowing my mind that we've been doing this now for 2 months, although it does seem like one very long day, I think, for so many of us. Time is tough to measure these days. I know it's difficult, keeping our distance and staying at home and everybody doing what they're doing, but it is so necessary. I know I've said it for the last couple of weeks now, how important it is that we don't let up, that we continue to stay the course on what we're doing. As you know, Todd, given these updates now for the last 2 months, I've been focusing on myself and Representative Hawkins are always, we always want to make sure that we stress that as legislators, there's really 2 areas that we need to focus on. Number one, the priority obviously is public health, making sure that we're supporting the administration, that we're supporting the governor, and that we're supporting the command center and Secretary Sutters so that we can amplify any guidance that they're putting out to the public and act as a conduit. We've talked before how, the rep and I and other legislators in the area have been on the phone constantly with Sturdy Hospital and with other healthcare providers. We've been speaking with the nurses. We've been speaking with the firefighters and the police officers, EMTs, paramedics, anyone that's providing public health these days, just to make sure that they have the resources or at least, that they know where to go to try and secure the resources that they need to keep the public safe. So obviously for us has been and will continue to be public health. Just to that end, I want to highlight a couple of things. Number one, there's an enormous amount of political pressure, I think, for legislators and for the governor and the administration, not just here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, but really across the country, to get things open back up again, to slow roll, open the economy. And we get that. I hear that. Very, very important that we make sure that people are able to pay the bills and continue to work. However, again, back to where I started, right now is not the time to do that here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. That'll come, but right now we are in that surge that I talked about last week. The point of this the whole time has been to make sure that we don't overwhelm the resources available, that the demand does not overwhelm the resources available for our public health institutions, for our healthcare providers throughout the Commonwealth. They've managed that. They've managed that for two reasons. Number one, because I think we had a plan. We had a plan going into this to make sure that they had the resources available, the ICU beds, the ventilators, the staffing necessary. But then the second piece was that we needed the public to do our part. We needed everybody to stay home so that we could, stop the spread that was going to happen like wildfire if we didn't take these mitigating actions. So because of that, we've been able to manage the surge. Now, there's a couple of things in the data that we're starting to look for. And certainly the command center and the public health experts and the governor, they're the ones that look at this on a daily basis. Of course, the legislators, we consult and talk about what's going on in our districts. But what they're really looking at right now is the positive test percentage. So we got some calls and emails on Thursday and Friday. I've been putting the dashboard out regularly on my Facebook page every single day so people understand where the numbers are. And I know, Todd, you've been doing the same, given some analysis where you can, specifically about Attleboro and about Bristol County. So every day we see a set of raw numbers of how many positive cases there were in the last 24 hours, how many deaths there were, unfortunately, in the last 24 hours, but also how many tests were conducted. So last week on Thursday, Friday, the previous few days, we started to see a little bit of a downturn, which was great. And then all of a sudden we get a couple of days that we were hoping were outliers on Thursday and Friday where the numbers really spiked for positive tests. The important piece to know is that the amount of tests those 2 days were also exponentially high. So the raw number of positive cases correlated directly to the increase in testing. That's good. It's good that we're doing so much testing. But again, the important piece to that is to look at the percentage rate of positive tests. Throughout this crisis, we've been all over, say, the mid 20%. It hovered kind of lower 20s. We had a few days where it was up close to 30%, which is concerning. On the days that we saw a spike this past week on Thursday and Friday, it was right around the low 20s, low to mid 20s, which is consistent. It's kind of back to mean. Today, Sundays have always been historically lower for some reason throughout the last couple of months. But today we saw another day where the positive testing number was down. It was down about to 17%. So that's good. We want to see more days to continue that trend. Additionally, what the governor is going to be looking at and the administration is going to be looking at is the hospitalization rate. Hospitalization rate, I think today was at around 7%. It's been up to 10 or 11%. It's been down roughly around 9% for a few days, and today it's at 7%. Again, another positive sign, but something that is, you just don't know until you see data over time. So that's what we're going to continue to watch. I would tell people in Attleboro, I know it's difficult doing what we're doing. Look for some guidance this week from the governor. We've been told that, that there's going to be some additional guidance, maybe some talk about when we can start to kind of phase in some reopening. But ultimately, the legislature and the governor and the administration and the command center have all been committed to letting science and letting data drive the decisions that we're making as a Commonwealth. That is key. This cannot be political. It cannot be gut instinct. It cannot be partisan. It has to be driven by the data and driven by the science, only when you consult with the public health experts, and that's what we're doing. So, and just in addition to that, obviously the public health issue remains our number one focus. But I do like to highlight some of the things that the legislature has done each week to the other issues that we're seeing. Obviously, we're at the doorstep or well in now to a major economic downturn. the likes of which we haven't seen before. There's a little bit of a different take on this as opposed to the last recession we saw in 08, or even recessions and downturns prior to that. You know, those previous economic downturns were more structural. When you think about the dot-com bubble, when you think about the housing crisis, you know, the way credit default swaps and mortgages and everything will be called in on margins, those are structural problems with the economy. This has been a little bit different. I heard an expert a couple of weeks ago say it's like we just kind of unplugged. We unplugged the economy. Well, what happens when you plug it back in? When we allow people to open up their businesses again and consumers can go out and spend money. So it's a little bit different as far as the modeling and projections go, but we are seeing a lot of economic turmoil out there. Because of that, Congress has reauthorized the PPP program. So I've been hearing from a lot of businesses in Attleboro that have been reaching out. The original Paycheck Protection Program, which was passed by Congress close to a month ago now, was oversubscribed. So within a couple of weeks, that money was gone. Congress went back in session. We want to thank Congressman Kennedy for driving back down last week to vote on a reauthorization of about $310 billion to the PPP program. That's going to be available starting tomorrow. So if folks that own businesses that want to keep people on the payroll, they can apply for this PPP program starting tomorrow. The federal government is going to be taking applications from the lenders as of 10:30 on Monday morning. So please reach out to us, or, you know, there's plenty of guidance and frequently asked questions on the state website as well as the federal government SBA website as well. There's been an issue with unemployment insurance that I just want to raise because I've heard from so many people in Attleboro and throughout the region on this. As we triage a lot of these unemployment issues, we're starting to kind of see where maybe there's been some unintended consequences or things that we need to fix. One of those issues actually seems pretty prevalent for a lot of people in this economy. If you are somebody that gets a W-2 for a side job, maybe you work, you know, a minimal amount of hours at a job and you make, you know, $12,000, $15,000 a year for a W-2 employer, somebody who traditionally pays into unemployment insurance. But if the bread and butter for what you do, if the bulk of your work comes from either a 1099 job, maybe you're a gig economy worker, or maybe you're a self-employed as a photographer or a DJ, and you make $50,000 or $60,000 a year doing that job, well, because of the pandemic unemployment assistance, the PUA, the way that it was written, when you apply for unemployment, if you are able to collect from traditional unemployment, again, on that smaller amount W-2 type job, then you are not eligible to apply for the PUA, which is where you would get the bulk of your unemployment assistance for lost wages. That's a problem, and I don't think that that was the original intent of that. We've elevated that as a local delegation, as a state delegation with our congressional delegation, and they have assured us that they're going to continue to try and find ways to fix that. We can't do anything here in the Commonwealth, unfortunately, to fix that. That is a federal issue. So I know it's an issue for a lot of people out there in Attleboro. We've heard from a lot of folks. So continue to, you know, kind of be patient on that. Hopefully we can fix that. This week, and certainly the representative is aware of this. Over in the House, they did it. We did it in the Senate. We passed a remote notarization bill. Again, little things that come up when you realize that people can't get close to each other or go to their attorney's office. How do you deal with wills and estate planning and, you know, even end of life documents, which people, you know, sadly are starting to think about when you can't get them notarized because you can't go to your attorney and sit at their desk, or they can't come to your house. So we went through some fits and starts trying to get this done, but we finally passed a remote notarization bill, which would allow people to do remote notarization through video conference like we're on right now. So a lot of states figured this out. We were kind of late to the party on this one, but it was absolutely necessary. We continued to advocate for it, and luckily we got that done. Two more issues I just want to highlight. There was a food security task force that's been established last week. The governor and the administration put together this task force that's going to be made up of all sorts of stakeholders, you know, to kind of come together and figure out where we need to prioritize any issues with food insecurity throughout the Commonwealth. There is legislative involvement. One of my colleagues is going to be on the task force. One of the representatives' colleagues from the House is going to be on the task force as well. And they're trying to identify immediate needs. So this is that short-term kind of action plan that needs to be developed. And by the end of this month, they're going to report back to the governor and the administration and to us in the legislature to say, look, this is what we need to identify. We've identified these short-term needs. This is what our action needs to be to make sure that people are not going hungry. So that's happening as we speak. And there'll be more developing news on that in the next week. Along with that, we're starting to pay attention to, and I know this is, it just becomes so much, it's one thing after another, but we're really starting to pay attention to what could be a food supply issue nationally. We've been told, and we're starting to see reports that certain, meat packing plants and butchers across the country are seeing high rates of COVID-19 amongst their staff, amongst their employees, and that's caused a lot of these plants to shut down. There is a trickle-down effect to that, obviously, that takes a little bit of time. But in Massachusetts, we're starting to look at this and have conversations with MDOT, the Department of Agricultural Resources, to say, okay, how is this going to affect the Massachusetts consumer? And are we going to get into a situation in Attleboro where there is a lack of food, even for people to just go to the grocery store and purchase? So it's it's not ringing bells or alarms or whistles here, but it's just something that I want people to be aware of. There's some talk about it nationally, and we're starting to dig into this on a state level as well. And finally, I will just say that we've been hearing from people all along, especially with issues with unemployment, with small businesses, with folks that are looking for help in many, many different ways. Continue to reach out. Todd, you say it all the time. You remind me of it all the time. Look, just let people know. If they need help, just ask. And I think that's an important message on this. If you need help, don't be afraid to ask. Please reach out. There's so many issues that people need assistance with, and whatever it is that we can do to help, I want to do that. So, my email, as always, paul.feeney@masenate.gov, and my phone number 617-722-1222. But again, Todd, I thank you for doing this. And if anybody in Attleboro needs help, please, again, if you need help, just ask. Thanks, Todd.
Outstanding, Senator Feeney. I appreciate that you're involved in so many things, and I hadn't even thought about the potential for a national food issue, and appreciate you guys proactively sort of looking at that, and appreciate the information about the numbers. I was certainly concerned seeing the spike in the total number of new cases and seeing that spike. So just to reiterate, where we're still at that peak level. We haven't, it looked like there was a little bit of a downturn, but that's not necessarily the case. So just to reiterate, everybody still needs to continue social distancing and keep up everything that we're doing. It is, but it's also, I see it as very optimistic that so far this has been working in, as far as we've seen, none of the hospitals have been overrun or run out of ICU beds as of yet. So
right. And to one caveat on the testing that I didn't mention, on Friday we were told that there was a reporting glitch by one of the national labs, and just to kind of give you the background on what happened. So they found out this national lab didn't report appropriately on a lot of the Massachusetts tests that they had performed. So instead of dumping them all into one day, which would have kind of skewed the data for one day, what DPH did is they went back and they actually allocated each of those positive tests and negative tests to the data from the previous days. So people may have seen some of the numbers change. That's the only reason why. They did find a batch of reporting that wasn't on each individual day. They had to go back and perform. So I just want people to be aware of that, people that are seeing the data. And the second piece, like you said, the hospitals, not only are they not overwhelmed and are they keeping up with this, but the emergency rooms and other units of hospitals, the folks that are coming in for cardiac issues or for, maybe potential stroke or some of these things, they haven't been going in. And the governor and the administration have asked us to amplify that message, to tell people, look, do not be afraid to go to a hospital, to go to your healthcare provider if you are having symptoms of other issues that are non-COVID related, because heart attacks aren't stopping, cardiac issues aren't stopping. People that are having trouble with diabetes, that's not stopping, but they're just not seeking care because they don't want to go into a hospital. And they've asked us to please let people know, go to the hospital. They're safe. Continue to go if you have symptoms for anything, even if it's not COVID-19.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Senator Feeney. Next up, we have Representative Hawkins. Jim, how are you?
There we go. I always forget that part. Thank you. And it sounds like a broken record to Senator Feeney and Steve Withers, but it's a different, you've done an amazing job. It's a different crew, a different set of leaders from the city on every week that you do this. So I'm saying the same thing that I've said before, is I think the most important thing we can do as elected people is communication, is to be available to the people in the city, to listen to them and to share what we know. And you've certainly done this. This is the 8th one that you've done. Every week with a different lineup. There's nothing repetitive about these. They're different every single week. And I talk to my peers. Nobody else has this. This is something Attleboro is lucky to have you doing this. So thank you.
It's a team effort, but thank you so much.
Well, you make it easy. It may be, but you make it easy and you do the heavy lifting. So thank you.
So how are things at the state level?
Well, thank you. Senator Feeney always does the heavy lifting, so I can talk about the fun stuff. I like coming after him. Same here. We've had, and I never give my contact on here, which is no reason. I just forget. So I don't forget this time. It's James.Hawkins, Hawkins, @mahouse.gov. And in my case, it's easy to reach me by my cell phone, which has worked out fine. Nobody calls me in the middle of the night. That's 508-226-1436. We've been similarly busy with people needing help, a lot with unemployment and small businesses. I'm very fortunate to have Tara working with me, and she's very organized and very diligent. It seems to come in waves. They seem, oh, we're all set, and then the next day we get a whole bunch in again. But I think so far we've done pretty well with them. In any question, don't be shy about asking me. We're in a position where we can help. Some of the things going on in the city. One of the things particularly to be proud of, besides your weekly presentations, is we have a strong network of nonprofits providing food and service to the people who are most vulnerable in a lot of different ways. But there's like a perfect storm in that they haven't been able to have their fundraisers at the very same time that they're suffering more than 50% more, sometimes double what they're used to dealing with for needing to help people. And in the case of the food pantry and the soup kitchens, at some point we're going to have food prices going up too. So Stronger Together Attleboro has been a week-long on-live fundraising effort, which tomorrow is the last day. So if you haven't, please look it up on Facebook or on the web and see if you can contribute. They can't have their traditional fundraisers, so this is pretty much the only way it's going to happen. So far, it's been very successful, but there's one day left if you haven't looked at it. I see that Councilor Delicio is on. We had office hours, which we shared. It's a little tradition that Jay and I have coffee once a month, which is good, the Republican and the Democrat. And you know, those have always been fun. There's nothing that we won't talk about. And there's a lot of things that we can do for the city. Yesterday was a little twist on that, and it was public, and people could call in. And we talked for a while, and a lot of good ideas, a lot of good conversations. And I think it very, very different than this is we're more listening than talking. And some people had some good suggestions. So I'm hoping, as with everything else, Todd, you do all the heavy lifting on these, and Jay did all the heavy lifting on the office hours. But it's a good service to the community, and thank you both for what you're doing. We had another kind of cool thing. Was Tuesday. We had 35 fire trucks and 20 police cruisers making a sort of a parade around Sturdy Hospital. There were so many that they couldn't go all the way around the block because they were still coming out of the parking lot when the lead cars got through. To thank the staff at Sturdy. And for both the first responders and Sturdy, to me, it touches me. And I'm working pretty hard, but I don't leave the house. I'm not really exposing myself to this virus. If I go to the store and it's busy, I don't think I should go in. I don't go in. And here's a group of people who go in every day and not to where there might be the virus, to where they know there's virus. So it was a very emotional afternoon, seeing so many people coming out to support the people at Sturdy. And Senator Feeney and I have been in conversations with Sturdy, and they're very well run. They've done a very good job of staying in charge of the situation as it developed. What else? Unemployment. I think Councilor Delicio is going to probably talk about the food drive, which is another very good thing that several of us are working on. I'm going to be short because Senator Feeney did all the work. He talked about all the issues, but
that's great, Jim. And I know seeing those videos of the fire trucks and the nurses coming out and thanking the first responders, and the first responders thanking Sturdy.
Oh, the sidewalks are with people from the city too. The sidewalks are crowded too.
It was so touching to see that. I loved it. So thank you so much for joining, Jim. And next up, is Catherine Ferrick on? Is that I see a phone number on here. I wasn't sure if that was Catherine or not. All right. Then moving on, Catherine, if you want to jump in, if that's you or whoever that is, just reach out and let me know. So moving on, we have Rachel and Carrie from Fuller Hospital. Rachel, thank you so much for joining us. Do you want to talk a little bit about what's going on at Fuller and how you guys have been impacted by all of this?
Sure. So as most of you know, Fuller Hospital, we have 102 inpatient psychiatric beds. We have about a 60 visit partial program that people come to during the day. 3 houses on the top of our campus where 36 patients can stay and do outpatient. And then we have about 60,000 visit and home therapy program. And we just opened a brand new adolescent partial program. So probably starting 6 weeks ago, I think when the virus started to hit, the hospital started preparing just like Sturdy would have. So I have 500 employees every single day who have continued to show up to work through this virus. With my senior leadership team working somewhere between 12 and 16 hours a day to continue to serve patients. We're full, and we've continued to admit psychiatric patients through this crisis so that our med-surg colleagues can continue to treat people who have the virus. We have been prepared to handle an overflow should it need be from Sturdy, and have bought medical equipment that a psychiatric hospital, quite honestly, never thought we would need. And so with that has come, just like anybody else, a financial strain on the hospital. And we've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on medical equipment, which normally a freestanding psychiatric facility would not. And prepare staff and sometimes patients with PPE as needed. So I think in the process of doing that, what we've learned is, the CDC recommendations, honestly, sometimes once, if not twice a week change. So the screening process, we've shut down every single entrance except one into the building. We screen patients before arrival, upon arrival, and after arrival into the building. We've stopped all visitors as of 5 weeks ago. But honestly, I feel nothing but grateful. I think my staff has been exceptional through all of this. The vast majority of people have continued to show up to work so that we can continue to do work and treat our community. And I think we're super clear that the long-term behavioral health effects of this virus is going to play out for years to come as people start to struggle financially, as businesses close, as depression and anxiety rises over this virus, especially I think in our youth population. We see agoraphobia going up, we see panic disorders going up. I think what we'll have to do is continue to look at how do we support our community psychiatrically. And I think how do we start to and think about improving outpatient services as people continue to be fearful of going outside. And so as a result, our in-home therapy, that's 60,000 visits serving about 40,000 kids, has all become telehealth as of 4 weeks ago. Our outpatient programs for adults and adolescents became telehealth 2 weeks ago. And we'll continue to treat inpatients and stay full through this crisis so that we can continue to pull those people out of Sturdy and all of the other med surges across the state.
Thank you so much, and thank you for everything you're doing throughout this. How do people that need help reach out for help? What can people do?
Sure. So you can call 833-3-FULLER, or certainly go to fullerhospital.com. I can encourage you to come in. You can walk in. We have a screening tent that's set up outside, just like we receive our staff. We will do screenings outside of our building. And if you need assistance, we'll get you outpatient or inpatient or in-home therapy. Those are options. Certainly you can call that telephone number. You can make a referral online and we can have someone call you back. But any of those remain as options.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And just to stress that these really are unprecedented times. And if you need help, reach out for help. Help's available. People want to help. People are available to help. If you need help, ask for it. There's nothing
I think, as essential employees, I mean, I know people understand that we're showing up and going to work every day. But I think the hidden fact that we don't often speak about is we're showing up for work every day. And so most of us are quarantined from our families. So if I have 500 people who are working, 8 to 12 hours a day, most of those people have 3 or 4 people at home they haven't seen for over a month. And so I think thinking diligently about, one, how do we support those people, and all the other essential, just like our Stop and Shop workers downtown, how do we support all of those people who have been quarantined for so long? And gratefully, I'm happy that that my staff aren't part of the unemployment line. But the truth is they're suffering in other ways. And I think we'll see this for a long time. I was speaking to Marjorie Decker yesterday, and we collectively believe that we'll be looking at this for 2 years. We'll be struggling through this financially with the behavioral health effects of this for a long time to come. And so how do we as a community come together and start to think about what does that look like and what do we need? And what I hope happens as a result of that is all the great things the legislation has done in the interim is that we keep in place the telehealth options, the increased services for psychiatric nurse practitioners, because we can't get psychiatrists and we know they're in small demand. So how do we take some of the things we've learned in the virus and use them for good and make sure that they're long lasting? And I'm very grateful for Rep. Hawkins and Betty Poirier for, behavioral health hospitals were left out of the first round of funding that's come through, even though we've continued to do the work. And so I think thinking about how do we as a member of our community continue to think about what's the need, how do we get it out there, and how are we supportive? And Senator Feeney has been in the building, and I'm grateful, and Mayor Haro has been in the building, and I think we've worked diligently over the last 4 years to make sure that Fuller Hospital was integrated into this community. And although we've been here for a long time, somehow that was the missing piece. And so I've been grateful for the legislators who have shown up over time, and certainly grateful to Carrie for making the connections over time to make sure that we do feel and are integrated into this community.
Thank you so much. Do you have suggestions for people at home? I know for me personally, my stress level's been high, and I've struggled with the kids getting on my nerves. Do you have general suggestions for the public for how to cope with the stress? How to any just general guidance for now that we've been in this for 8 weeks or so, it have been sort of shut off from the public.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're first of all have to be kind and empathetic to each other and our children, right? Because it is unprecedented times. And I think noticing changes in our eating patterns, our sleeping patterns, and honoring that anxiety. Because I think what we'll continue to see as we move forward is this isn't going to be over next month or in September or in the fall. I mean, we've kind of permanently changed the way we're going to move through the world. And what is that going to look like? And so for the first time in a long time, it's interesting when we talk about SES, socioeconomic factors, in getting behavioral health services. For the first time in a long time, people have access that never did before through telehealth. And so if you couldn't get on a car or a bus, or RIPTA wasn't able to get you there, you can actually just pick up your smartphone, which the vast majority of people have. So one of the things I absolutely would encourage is looking at your outpatient options, because they have increased dramatically. And honoring that this is a stressful time for people. I mean, I can tell you, so I've been quarantined away from my family since 3/18. And honestly, my children are afraid of me. They're afraid that I have the virus. They're afraid of what I bring home. They're afraid of me. And I think, that's a hard thing to deal with, which I'm not sure is better or worse than being home with your children all day, every day. I'm not sure which one of those is actually worse. But I think, how do we look at that in terms of, this is, I'm a clinician by trade, a social worker by trade. The very definition of what we're going through is trauma. We are all experiencing trauma. We've been separated from family, so we have loss and grief. And all of those things cause a lot of feelings to come up. And so we have to honor that and know that that's going to be true. And I think appreciate the level of access that we have to services that we probably haven't before. And certainly Fuller Hospital is there and available for people. But I do think just honoring for each other that we haven't seen each other, that we've been distant. The power of touch is a super emotive thing that all of us need. And even in my own house, I'm not able to do that currently. But honestly, we aren't able to do that with a lot of people we love. And that certainly is going to continue to cause anxiety for all of us.
Outstanding. Thank you so much, Rachel. Carrie, do you have anything else to add to that?
I really just, I think Rachel said it all. She said it perfectly. I cannot thank enough the first responders in our community, our healthcare workers, like she had noted, that come in every single day. As somebody who typically is out in the community a significant amount, I have got to know my hospital from a very different perspective. And I'm absolutely impressed with how we've been able to come together as a community to take care of our patients, take care of ourselves, to put into place all the measures that Rachel had mentioned. It was quick, it was organized, and the results are showing themselves just in the quality care we're able to continue to provide. And we're looking forward to continuing to be able to expand our services and our help to our community members in new ways, such as through the use of telehealth. So please, check out our website, continue to, check our Facebook page out. We have some amazing community members who have donated masks to us, who have donated, face shields and all different types of things that we've needed to help keep our patient and staff safe. So we really just want to say thank you to Attleboro. Thank you to Rachel for being a really strong leader during a really difficult time. So that's it.
And thank you both so much for joining, and so much that your entire.
I want to thank both of you also in very different ways. Rachel, you've changed the way that the hospital does business in the community. And Carrie, you're everywhere helping people appreciate what services are available. It's an honor to work with you. Totally.
Thank you.
Thank you. And yeah, what was the 800 number again, one more time?
8333 Fuller. And Todd, I'd also like to say we're going to celebrate our staff. I think on Wednesday, we're talking to APD and AFD to come and do a drive-by in the morning. So certainly you all are welcome. More the merrier.
Outstanding. If there's ever anything that you guys need, happy to help. I know reached out to Sturdy. I talked about if any of the nurses end up quarantined or whatever. I mean, even if it's something as little as going to pick up groceries, we're very grateful for the job you guys do, and would love to extend that out. If ever you guys need anything, we're happy to help.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, we have Jay Delisio, Councilor Delisio, to talk about the drive-through food drive for next weekend.
Good evening, Todd. Thanks for having me on. And Carrie and Rachel, thank you for your service for all of your employees and the job that you do and continue to do. So thank you. I think this falls right in line with what everyone's been talking about. And, Attleboro is at its best when we come together. And right now we need to continue to come together. Senator Feeney touched on some of the issues that we could be seeing statewide, nationwide with some of the food. Locally, our food pantries really could use some additional support. So at the beginning of April rather, we did the first Attleboro drive-through food drive, and we were able to raise over $2,000 for St. Joseph's Food Cellar, for St. Teresa's, and Hebron Food Pantry. The amount of food that came in was just amazing and staggering. And we're going to do it again next Saturday and Sunday, May 2nd and 3rd, from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. We're going to do that at the Sanford Street Municipal Parking Lot. This is the one behind the YMCA downtown. You know, Senator Feeney, Representative Hawkins, former counselor and Vice President Heather Parika, Councilor Kobus, and myself really appreciate the generosity of this community. And it seems whenever the challenge is laid out, Attleboro will answer the bell. So we're going to be supporting, again, those three organizations: Hebron Food Pantry, St. Teresa's, and St. Joseph's Food Cellar. So we're looking for non-perishable items, personal care items, unexpired items. So, cereals, soups, juices, lunchbox snacks, things of that nature. And I will tell you, if I could take a second, Todd, and just talk about some of the stories that we heard at the beginning of the month. There's really three that I like to talk about. The first was a gentleman who said, for months and months and months, a couple of years back, I stood in line over there at Hebron Food Pantry, and now's my chance to give back. We had a lady, I believe she was in her late 70s, come in with a box of cereal, and she said, "I'm sorry, this is all I had." And we were all like, "No, don't worry, that's great." And then it dawned on all of us, I think we all kind of had that same epiphany, that it was literally the only thing she had to give, but she still wanted to give it. There was a gentleman who got his food from the food pantry the previous Wednesday, didn't use it all, didn't need it all. So he brought back and redonated what he didn't use. So this is some of the stuff that we're hearing and we're seeing firsthand. And, we just invite everyone to come on down. It is a drive-through because we're very serious about social distancing. The way this works is you're going to pull into the parking lot. We're going to direct you where to go, and we'll have volunteers with gloves, masks, and we'll just pull the food right out of your car, and you don't have to get out. We're limiting the exposure to people the best we can. But come on down and make sure that, just like Todd's been saying, there's so many people who are in a situation they've never been in before. And there's nothing wrong with asking for help if you need it, whether it's for food, whether it's for some of the services that, Senator Feeney and Rachel and Carrie talked about. We're all here to help any way that we can. And, I know Senator Feeney always gives his information out. I try to do the same. My cell phone's 508-838-7328. And, I'll end on this. We can't get complacent. And with my role in the RMV, this is what I'm telling my people as well. We can't be complacent. We have to continue with the PPEs. We have to continue with social distancing, because Todd, the research you've done has been absolutely amazing. So, just really, guys, if anything you can do to help would be awesome. We're looking forward to it. May 2nd and 3rd from 10 to 1 at the Sanford Street public parking lot. So thank you, Todd.
Outstanding, Jay. Thank you so much, and thank you for helping set all of that up. And last but certainly not least, Steve Withers with the Attleboro Public School update. Steve.
Thank you.
Hey.
Thank you, Todd.
Yeah. So how?
So quick update.
Go ahead.
No, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, so anything new over the last week or so for Attleboro Public Schools?
Well, I mean, it's old news now, but the school has been officially canceled. In-person school has been officially canceled for the year by the governor. Not all that unsurprising, but still disappointing nonetheless, and a little bit daunting, I think, for families and for educators. But it's a challenge where we're ready to meet. We have a school committee meeting tomorrow night, in which we'll be discussing next year's budget. We'll be discussing updates on remote learning and the progress that's going on in the schools. We'll also be hearing a presentation from Principal Rooney, who spoke earlier tonight. And really the idea is for him to expand on what is being done now to plan for possible scenarios for graduation. Whether that be sort of in-person event, a virtual graduation. These are ideas that are getting tossed out and explored right now. It tends to give us an update and a timetable on that. And then, like I said, with remote learning, the reality for the rest of the year, the administration has been working very hard with the schools to ensure there's communication between the schools, the teachers, and the families, and that the families' concerns as they arise are being addressed. May is a very important month in the school calendar. Once June hits, something in the mind I think kind of switches for the students that summer is here. It gets warmer. The school year is ending, so it's less of a productive enrichment time. And so May is always a time that we really look to really get get one solid month in with no vacations, where we can get a lot done and make a nice finishing push to the year. That's got to be the same goal this year, although it obviously looks different. But with the lag and transition to remote learning, people getting used to it, people getting into routine, really feel like this month will be crucial to provide learning opportunities for our students, and not only be and learn a little bit, learn a lot more. So this is an important month for families. The superintendent sent out a letter and email to all families today. And I would just encourage parents, families to contact the administration, to contact the school committee if you have any questions or concerns. I know a lot of people have them. We're all learning how to do this together, but we're obviously more than willing to answer any questions you have and address any concerns.
Perfect, thank you. How has the remote learning been going in general? Have we, I know it was rocky for everybody across the board at the beginning, or at least it was for the COVID family, but are we seeing that improving now that people are sort of settling in and getting used to how that's going?
Yeah, I think people are more used to it now. The first 2 weeks of remote learning were a little bit different. Again, those were technically snow days, because they were built into the schedule, so teachers weren't required to be working, and they also frankly used a lot of that time to cram into how to do this remote learning over the remainder of the year. Since then, the last few weeks, it's been more of lesson plans and assignments, and those seem to be getting better. I think there's still concerns from some families about the time commitment and effort required of parents lots of times, because it does, you're becoming almost like a second teacher to them, and that's not something most of us are trained or have the skills to do, or the patience, frankly. I know I don't. And many of us are also doing that with a full-time job, part-time job, or the stresses that come with perhaps having lost your job. So it puts a lot of stress on parents, and that's something that the schools are not naive about. And we appreciate all the work and the relationships with the parents. What we've been saying and what we'll continue to say is do what you can do what's best for your family, for your family's mental health as well as their education. This is an important factor in your children's growth and development, but there are other important factors too. So as a family, each family has to make a decision on should we do this one particular assignment, or is it going to cause too much stress? And that's something that we understand.
Outstanding, Steve. So that about wraps us up. Does anybody have anything else that they would like to add?
Todd, big shout out to former Attleboro High School player Kyle Murphy signing with the Giants.
Yes.
Big news going from the Blue Pride, the Blue Bombardiers, to the Big Blue down in New York. But that's big. That's big for our community. Congrats to Kyle Murphy and his family and the whole Attleboro school community. Great job.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. And that was huge. Super excited to hear that. Anything else from anybody? All right. Well, thank you and have a great night. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you, everyone.